Evening. I would like to call to order the meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen for Tuesday, October the 1st. The first item on our agenda is to adopt the agenda, and I don't have any changes or deletions.
No, ma'am. I didn't have any either.
Which is very rare for us. Okay, could I have a motion to adopt the agenda as printed?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, for Mayor's report, I'm just going to update on a few of our infrastructure projects that are either in construction or hopefully will be soon. We were told that equipment would arrive on September the 9th to start on the Highway 7 University Avenue interchange. Clearly, that did not happen. They now say October 7th, so maybe by Halloween we'll have some construction underway at that intersection. Our fingers are crossed though, and we're pushing as hard as we can. It's gonna be a project that takes 18 to 24 months. Progress is a pain. Repeat that to yourself as you drive through that intersection for the next 18 months, but it's gonna be great when it's finished. Our downtown stormwater detention project that is going on behind City Grocery in that parking lot, it continues. The contractor says that they will be paving Tyler on Thursday of this week. The parking lot's still being graded. They expect for it to be finished by next week. The metal decking along the backs of the businesses along Harrison is underway, so we're pretty hard to get that back open. And I think it's something everybody's going to be proud of when you see it. Contracts are in place and design has begun on a connector road that some of you may have read about from Piggy's Road at University Avenue. It'll connect to Commonwealth, which goes in front of Della Davidson. Will be a great thoroughfare to allow for ingress and egress from Oxford Commons that's growing so quickly. Give people another north-south way to exit there. We also have design underway for a new roundabout. I know that's shocking to everyone here at North Lamar and Highway 30, or as we locals call it, three-way. So that is under design as well. So with that, I will ask the board to authorize the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on September the 17th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I'll ask you to authorize the approval of accounts for all city departments.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ask you to consider the consent agenda that's very long tonight.
Motion to consider the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next on our agenda is to discuss a proposed jail contract that's provided to us by the Lafayette County Board of Supervisors. It's attached, board, to your agendas, and you may, some people in the audience may have seen it attached as well. Cities like ours are required to have agreements to house prisoners that they arrest in their city limits. We've always done this by agreement with the county, and for years, the city has paid the entire amount that the prisoners are required to pay for their own housing to the county for misdemeanor arrests. For felony arrests, we paid that amount for at least 10 days, and if the misdemeanor prisoners were sentenced to a longer term, then we pay that amount too. In October of 23, the Board of Supervisors asked us to approve payment of $55 per day for prisoners arrested by the Oxford Police Department, up from the $35 that's allowed by state statute for a prisoner to pay, with the same terms regarding misdemeanor and felony prisoners. This seemed high, and in fact is higher than many surrounding counties. But the city agreed to the request, even though the state statute still allows us only to charge back $35 to the prisoner. It was important to us to be a good partner. In June, the Board of Supervisors asked to again change the terms of our agreement, but have not yet provided us with the underlying reason that these fees should be increased. The Board of Supervisors have also asked that the city police officers take a direct role in administering to the health of prisoners held long-term in the Lafayette County Detention Center. This would not only increase the financial costs to Lafayette County taxpayers living in the city, but would also create what we worry will be a two-tiered system of health care that's not in the best interest of either the detainees or the Lafayette County taxpayers. Almost half of the citizens of Lafayette County reside in the city limits. I want to make sure everybody understands that the city taxpayer is also a county taxpayer. The county's latest population report from 2022 shows that the county population is 59,204. Residents living within the city limits of Oxford is reported at 27,509. As a matter of fact, because of assessed property value, the county taxpayers who reside inside the city limits are funding approximately 66%, or 2/3 of all ad valorem taxes collected in the county. So we're paying approximately 66%, or 2/3 of the expenses of the entire county, on top of the fee being assessed for prisoners arrested by Oxford Police Department. I want to repeat that because I think that's a fact that many people rarely think about. Everybody in this room is a county taxpayer. Some of you are also city taxpayers. Those of us who live in the city limits of Oxford are paying 2/3 of the county's expenses. As I said, tonight we're considering a jail contract presented to us by the Lafayette County Board of Supervisors. As I understand it, the Board of Supervisors would like for the Lafayette County taxpayers who live in the city limits to pay an even greater additional fee for the people that are arrested by the Oxford Police Department. They want county taxpayers who live in the city limits to pay 2/3 plus an additional $55 a day for those arrested by the city. The city is reimbursed only $35 of that amount for each of these pretrial detainees arrested in the city, because that's all that state statute allows. The county board has recently raised taxes 2 mills. This would be an additional tax increase on Lafayette County residents that live within the city limits of Oxford. That's a lot. The city of Oxford believes we should and we want to pay our fair share. At this time, we believe that the Lafayette County taxpayers who live in the city limits are paying our fair share. For the board's information, with guidance from our city attorney, we submitted a request last week asking the county for specific information about this need for more revenue from county taxpayers who live in the city. We are asking about time of detention, cost per prisoner, and overall jail costs. The county attorney had these documents delivered today at 4:45, so we've not had the opportunity to review them yet. As I said previously, the county raised the daily rate for those arrested by Oxford Police Department from $35 a day to $55 a day. Whether they're arrested on a charge that allows them to stay there for 4 hours or whether they're there for 24 hours, we pay that full amount. Although we were provided no data that supported this need for increased cost to county taxpayers living in the city, we agreed to it because we want to be a good partner and we sincerely want to pay our share. We just believe we are. In July, the Board of Supervisors presented us with yet another request for additional fees and for city officers to take a direct role in the health care of the prisoners. At that time, several issues were identified that were contributing to the increased length of stay in the Lafayette County Detention Center. The city has looked into pretrial detention and actually lowered the number of days on average that city prisoners are staying in the jail since these discussions took place. We don't know if the county's doing the same, but this should be part of the discussion. It's not addressed at all in the contract presented. At the time of those discussions in July, the city and county agreed to work on these issues for a few months and then to revisit the need for adjustments. A few weeks later in August, the Board of Supervisors said they would like for the contract to be signed now. City representatives and county representatives met again to discuss the issues. At the end of this discussion, we all sat around the table and agreed to continue to address the issues identified and to revisit it in March after the February grand jury to see if improvements to policies and procedures had in fact solved the issues. A week later, we were surprised to receive the same contract with a message from the Board of Supervisors that they again are pushing for the contract to be signed now. The city has come to the table several times now in good faith to discuss this contract, and we're disappointed that the Board of Supervisors, after agreeing to a date in March, are again pushing for a contract that only increases the financial burden on county taxpayers who live in the city. As we consider the new contract proposal, we think some broader issues should be addressed, including timing for grand juries, bond settings, and ensuring that indigent prisoners are provided appropriate and timely legal counsel. Discussing these issues will reduce time in jail, and it'll reduce costs for all Lafayette County citizens. These issues are important for county prisoners, which we also pay 2/3 for, just as we do for municipal prisoners. And addressing these issues as part of our contract discussions will benefit all the taxpayers throughout the county. Our intention was to continue conversations in good faith, but the Board of Supervisors just kept moving the goalpost. My suggestion to the board this evening is that we review the documentation that we received a few minutes ago detailing the expenses of the jail. Once we've reviewed that, I think we can sit down, discuss actual costs, and determine what the real need is and what's fair to the Lafayette County taxpayers who live within the city. I welcome your input.
I would say that at this time, certainly there are a lot of documents to review. There's certain information that we need from a board to mull over, but the most important is the stewardship of the taxpayers from Lafayette County who live in the city, and we need to decide whether or not we are taking care of that from the standpoint of just because we're asked to raise an amount without giving a reasoning behind it. I don't think that's proper and prudent on our part. I mean, we don't know of any purpose behind it other than we've been given the same contract 3 times. There are also other ways, I think, that the county and the city can work together in reducing time in jail, people in jail, the expense of people in jail. And I know I've met with some people about that, and there's a lot of good ideas that can be explored rather than just simply more money.
Yep.
And so that's why I agree that no action should be taken on the contract this time.
Does anybody feel differently? If not, then we'll review the information that we received this afternoon and come back to the table. All right, next on our agenda is consider an appeal of the Planning Commission site plan approval for case 3126, Land Shark Seafood for Velvet Ditch Seafood for property located at 430 South Lamar Boulevard, being further identified as PPIN 8287. Ben, catch us up to where we are now.
Yeah, you bet. I just wanted to kind of take a step back, give you a little bit of timeline. Y'all might remember originally there was a certificate of appropriateness that was requested from the Courthouse Square Historic Preservation Commission. That took place in July the 1st, and that was granted by the commission. Y'all heard an appeal of the granting of that, the approval of that COA, and that approval was upheld on July 16th of this year. The applicant then submitted a site plan to the city to review it, and that was to facilitate the bathroom addition, the installation of turf over the parking lot, the addition of 2 bars, outdoor seating with tables and umbrellas. Additionally, there was a fence around the perimeter of the site with planters and stakes to install it as in bulb lighting. The site plan also included an area designated for a boil room that would eliminate the need for the applicant's food truck or trailer. So that was presented to the commission for consideration, and a motion to approve the site plan with 8 conditions that are listed in your packet was made by Commissioner Murphy. It was seconded by Commissioner Alexander, and that motion carried with a 6-to-1 vote. We did subsequently receive a notice to appeal on behalf of the residents in the neighborhood, and that was by Mr. Paul Kenichi. And unfortunately, he's not able to attend the meeting this evening, but we do have Ms. Lauren Ward here to speak on behalf of that appeal.
Okay. Well, if the board has any questions for Ben, if you don't, I'm going to ask Lauren to come up and, as the appellant, present their case.
Good evening, everyone. As Ben said, my name is Lauren Ward. I'm an attorney here in Oxford, and I'm representing several of the residents of the South Lamar Historic District that's adjacent to this proposed development. Before I begin with my appeal presentation, I did want to give those residents a chance to stand and be recognized in support of their appeal tonight. Thank you. As Ben stated, this is an appeal of the Planning Commission's approval for the site plan for this development. our folks believe that they got it wrong. And that's kind of my job here tonight, is to shed light on how the Planning Commission erred. And that's what we'll hope to do. I think the best first step we can provide y'all with is copies of the relevant land development code ordinances. Ms. Jenny Terry, one of the residents I represent, is going to hand you out some copies of those.
Thank you.
While y'all are looking over those, candidly, the yellow highlights are mine. They are just meant to draw your attention to the provisions at issue today. But in sum, based on these 4 land development code ordinances that the Planning Commission has to adhere to, that they have to adhere to while they're approving a site plan, they were supposed to review the following factors: public health, safety, general welfare of Oxford citizens and the public at large, the relationship between the development and existing streets and roads, vehicular and pedestrian traffic, or safety, excuse me, off-street parking and loading areas, traffic flow and control, compatibility with properties in the general area, impact on property values, adequate provision of disposal of waste, refuse collection areas, avoidance of odor, noise regulations, and potential for a traffic impact analysis. We would present to you tonight on behalf of these appealing residents that those factors were not fully considered before this site plan was approved. And that's why we're asking you as a board to reverse that decision this evening. Had those provisions been completely considered, there were 4 main issues that these residents have, and they break down to traffic, parking, noise, and odor. Those are their main concerns. I'm going to walk through kind of those concerns briefly, but please understand that those are considerations that that should have been made by the Planning Commission under Land Code Ordinances 1.2, 1.6, 1.5, and 9.2. The first one I mentioned is traffic, and when I discuss this, it's both vehicular and pedestrian. I think we can all agree that that is one of the busiest intersections on the Oxford Square, where University Avenue meets South Lamar. It's busy with cars, it's busy with pedestrians, it's kind of busy all the time, but not more so than when the bars get out in the evening. I candidly speak from personal experience. I stayed up way past my bedtime a few Fridays ago and drove through that intersection and got to see it for myself. We're talking about a lot of pedestrians waiting to cross streets. Sometimes they're not waiting, they're crossing against signals. Sometimes they're spilling over into the actual roadway. So that's what we've got now. And what these residents would argue to you all is that approving this development is only going to compound on that problem of traffic. And then it becomes a safety issue. We've got vehicles competing with pedestrians, taking dangerous turns, crossing at the wrong time. And while we appreciate that the applicant for this development has positioned the exit gates off of the exact corner of that intersection, we think it's logical to assume that most of those patrons leaving the bar in the evening are going to approach the intersection to either cross, or they're just going to cross the road where their gate is located. That causes an issue. It causes congestion, especially when we're talking about these people waiting in line to get to the establishment. There was nowhere in the site plan that allowed for kind of a staging area, so when the patrons enter and are waiting for a seat, we're curious as to where they're going to be. And then finally, on traffic, we understand that the applicant agreed that he would not have delivery trucks coming to deliver to his location on the square as a way to prevent traffic congestion. That wasn't included in the site plan. It's not a specific prohibition or stipulation that's been made. So these residents are concerned that we're now leaving the door open to add to traffic issues with large delivery trucks parked in turn lanes or on our very narrow University Avenue at that location. We did not see where a traffic impact study had been done for this project. I know that that's a decision that was out of our residents' hands, but we think one was likely called for and probably should have been considered, at least by the Planning Commission. And that kind of brings me to my point for the next 2 factors, both traffic and parking. Residents presented these issues to the Planning Commission, and they were advised that it's an OPD concern, that they should have taken up with the police department. As you see by the ordinances in front of you, they are actually a concern the Planning Commission should have taken into consideration. Moving on to parking, you all know that these streets and the adjacent neighborhoods are narrow. We've already got residents and visitors of those residents who park within the bounds of the roadway, just simply because there's not enough room on their driveways. Add into other people already visiting our square and parking there as well. If this establishment is allowed to move forward as is in that current location, it is not adjacent to the larger parking lots on the square behind the Harrison or our big parking garage. It's not adjacent to the established rideshare pickups. So we're looking at issues of people driving themselves to the establishment, potentially further bottlenecking these narrow roads, and then potentially having Ubers drop them off on these side streets, maybe even taking a chance and dropping them off close to that location, which will only further clog the roads at that intersection. These are all concerns, but not more so than the fact that this is a very eclectic neighborhood. We have college students who live there. There are young families with children, older retirees. They create a myriad of potential emergencies that we need to have first responders be able to respond to. If these roads are bottlenecked with a lot of parking issues, we're looking at potential for fire trucks, ambulances, police vehicles to not make it through and not be able to respond in a timely manner. So now our parking concern has turned into a safety concern for those residents. And then moving on to the next factor, we've got noise. This was brought up at several meetings, and we understand that the applicant has removed the stage for live music from his site plan. And while that's appreciated, there's been no prohibition or stipulation in his site plan that there won't be any live music. It's a concern for those residences. Approving this development in this location moves the nucleus of nightlife from the square right to the edge, right up to their front door where it hasn't been before. And not having that security and knowing that live music isn't going to be allowed. I understand that he will have to keep in with the noise ordinance and that he's agreed to have Bluetooth speakers on the tables, but there's been no showing that even those Bluetooth speakers won't exceed the ordinance. The residents are very concerned. They see what happens with the Harrison down the road. It's been an ongoing concern. And once again, it turns into a safety issue when we have to pull potential police officers to respond to future noise infractions, which they're already doing at other locations. And it could cause an issue where they're not able to do their job where they need to. And then finally, one of the last concerns, and probably the more obvious, you all probably heard it at the last appeal, is the odor that this establishment could potentially cause. It's undisputed. The applicant has agreed that cooking this Cajun food, whether inside, outside, in a boiler room, on a food truck, it's going to be smelly. He's agreed, and it's undisputed, that he doesn't have a way to mitigate that smell. So not only are we talking about the odor the food's going to cause while it's being cooked, the other two part of this is what happens to the waste from eating seafood. We all know, eat a crawfish, eat a shrimp, something's left over. Where is it going after that? How long is it going to sit in a trash can? How long until they take it to a dumpster? We understand that the applicant has agreed to use the community dumpsters that'll be located, I believe, behind OPA in that parking lot area. But now we're talking about moving the smell from the establishment proper over to another dumpster where it's going to sit. Nowhere in the site plan was there refuse collection areas afforded for, or was there really any stipulations about how often, how long, when that trash needs to be removed and taken out. Smell is the big concern here. It's something we can't change. Applicants agreed that he can't mitigate it. It's not going to change. It's going to be smelly. And that's a big concern for these residents who are within that 4-block radius next door. And this isn't like a one-stop shop crawfish that might be open a few hours a day. It's open 7 days a week. And that is what their bread and butter are, is cooking seafood. Those are the 4 points. And we'd argue to you that they weren't considered thoroughly in front of the Planning Commission. Planning Commission even referred some of them to OPD. And for that reason, the Planning Commission erred when it approved this site plan. I know the applicant will have a chance to speak, but I did want to address the fact that he has compared this development to other developments on the square in support of him getting approval. But what I would say is when you look at locations like St. Leo, Back Nine, Funky's, their outdoor seating footprint is a much smaller overall footprint for their business. This is an outside patio where the majority of the patrons will be outdoors. When you look at the Oliver, it's a different kind of establishment. They're a hotel. Their patrons are mainly their guests using that outdoor patio space. There's no bars installed on that patio space. And that location also has its own smaller parking area underneath the hotel. So it mitigates some of those concerns regarding parking and pedestrian traffic. None of those locations are going to be cooking crawfish on a regular basis outside. That is the one thing that sets this business apart. It's unlike any other that we have on the square. So we would argue to you that those properties aren't comparators that should be used in support of approving this development. And with that, I hope I have shed some light on what my clients believe the Planning Commission got wrong and why you all should decide tonight to reverse their decision to approve this site plan for the Velvet Ditch.
Thank you, Lauren. Does anybody have a question for Lauren before we let Jared come and speak? No?
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Lauren. Jared, you want to come up?
How we doing, guys? Jared Foster, Land Shark Velvet Ditch. I feel like most of us are family at this point. It's been 4 court hearings, and I understand everybody's opinion here is obviously important from you guys to you guys. I have followed every single objective. I cannot change the way a business is ran because of a subjective opinion. The law in the United States and in Oxford, Mississippi is based off of objective analysis. Objective is the laws set in front of you. I have followed every single law, and I have literally waved the white flag to make sure that I satisfy every single emotion. So what I'd like to do, and today I didn't bring a crowd or bring anybody with us. We're actually over there working, making sure that we're getting everything done in a timely manner to get open. So I just want to address what she obviously promoted here, and it's her job, and I appreciate you doing so. I would have hired representation. I was told to bring an attorney 4 court dates ago. I didn't see the point. Everything I'm doing is legal, and all I can do is read to you what the legal laws are, and I've done that, and I'm not going to waste your time with that today. So I'm going to respond to her concerns based upon the court hearings that we've had up to this point, and very simply, from 1.2 forward that you spoke on, yes, it's busy. So would you like us to knock the building down and not have a busy business? I don't think that's possible. The library is on a one-way road in 2 different directions. The library, there's 1,500 capacity. There are 4 other bars touching that equal over 2,900 capacity of college students on one-way roads. There's a TV facing on a one-way road on Funky's small porch. So those things do cause distractions. The police officers have done a phenomenal job. Luckily, we have a safe city, and we don't have major crime here, and that starts from the middle all the way here, and that's what you guys want. You want safe. I want safety too. I have an insurance policy, and the last thing I want is somebody to get hurt. But for the last 20 years, we've had nothing but cars full speed coming through that red light, and nobody cared when the people were backing out of the Abner's lot and couldn't get out. Nobody cared that there was a woman pushing a stroller and possibly could have been in between the moving cars and those things. So we have to compare our corner to the other corners. I'm not comparing myself to another business. I'm comparing myself to the objective laws that were followed by every business, including myself today. Tom Howarth, public thank you for giving us all of this moving forward, because I couldn't have done this part, but like everything you've done for me, I'm super grateful. Guys, y'all know this is something that I'm trying to make temporary when it comes to the build out. We wouldn't even be out there making that parking lot ugly. I got a phone call yesterday, Miss Tannehill was very annoyed with not having barricades out there. I had barricades that I rented, and it turned into 4 of them only showing up instead of 26. So when things get addressed, even within my business, when Land Shark gets a 1-star review, I'm the company that posts that we get a bad review. And that's why I'm publicly saying I apologize for the mess that's out there. This past weekend in the rain, we didn't want to have to deal with that. If we wouldn't have gotten the 2 appeals we've gotten, things would have been sped up. I'd already be done with the location, be beautiful, and you guys would be coming there to eat, drink, and be merry with us. And you'd be sure that this isn't just some, I'm going to say, college bar. If you walk in, which some people in this courtroom have walked in and seen all of the efforts we put into this place. So I'm going to address this. Libraries on a one-way, 1,500 person capacity. They're all forced out into one-way streets that are no different than ours. Our business has 2 safety exits off the corner, and over 600 people crossed that road Saturday for chicken on a stick. Nobody ever cared about their safety any different than today. Obviously, the laws are the laws. There are blinking signs that show that you can cross that street. Our pedestrians are actually pushed to an Uber pickup. The great city of Oxford organize an Uber pickup 100 yards from my bar. And it actually sends them in the opposite direction of the four-way because you guys knew what you were doing when you created where the Uber pickup would be. You moved it away from traffic, which is what we're doing. We're pushing them away from traffic. When they come from the campus, from university, they don't have to go all the way around. They can go to the other bars and they can be safe and go in that direction. Instead, we did put the exits in a much safer spot. I would love to put benches outside of our fence and all that, but that's city property. So there's only a certain amount of city property I can invest in before I'm bankrupt. Saying that, the hotel across the street has 152 residents with the same laws. They all come out of the doors. They all eat. Those residents are going to be coming across our street to eat with us. The noise ordinance that you mentioned, I can't break the noise ordinance. You guys are going to shut me down on that. We've got 4 officers here with badges. They're going to be standing at our door. Y'all are going to be calling in advance about a noise ordinance. They're going to be watching us hard to make sure we don't become that bar. We've got a spotlight on us. I don't have any speakers in the Bluetooth speakers that we would have out there, the 8-inch speakers that I've talked to Ben about, that we've had many meetings on this to make sure that I don't break a noise ordinance. We already hooked all of our sound up this past Saturday night for you guys. Y'all didn't notice our garage door was open. We turned our sound system all the way up, and I bought the noise ordinance little thing that you can do a noise monitor on, and I walked around my whole entire property. And even within 22 feet of my front door, I wasn't breaking the noise ordinance, much less than the gray sidewalk. Which means y'all aren't going to be calling about our bar. You're going to be calling about the bar you've been calling about for months. We're not going to be that bar. We don't have a stage. We don't have a music festival style stage. We are literally a restaurant that turns into a bar at night that luckily has to follow the laws in the city ordinance of Oxford. If we are breaking the noise ordinance, they're not going to allow us to stay open. I've heard in like every little small detail possible in the noise ordinance. The smell of food, guys. If you're cooking food in a building, that vent hood does not get rid of the smell. At any restaurant in Oxford, the barbecue places, barbecue smell, the chicken on a stick at 1 a.m., that vent hood, it sucks the smell out and shoots it outside. When it does, that same smell right there in the kitchen goes out of the building. It's no different. Our food is a subjective opinion. If you don't think Cajun food smells good, I understand, but you're going to have to tell the other 15,000 people in Oxford that voted us best seafood in Oxford. Since 2015, we have been a grinding business. We've had 0 health citations, 0 noise ordinances with a garage door over at Landshark that follows the same noise ordinance in the city of Oxford. We've had 0 health issues, we've had 0 trash issues, we've had 0 smell, and we've had 0 people call our company about being sick or coming forward to us about a health policy, about them getting sick off of our food. I can't address anything any more than I already have besides to tell you guys I appreciate it. But at this point, we have to come to an agreement and understanding that I am the same citizen as the other 100 citizens on the square, and every single business has to be treated the same. If you're going to allow other companies to cook chicken, steak, a rooster, whatever they're cooking, it's still a smell. Guys, my Cajun food smells phenomenal. 100%, it smells amazing. People come out of Walmart, they literally got all their groceries and they still show up and buy our food. We're not cooking raw seafood and leaving it on the property. Now to your trash. We have you guys that created a barrier around trash cans for our grease traps and all of the trash to go to. I did the favor and I went ahead and knocked the dumpster down this week. I'm taking the Abner sign down. I can't use the pole sign. So I went ahead and did the things the city's asked me to do. I got a little 3'5" banner you can barely see from the street. I'm doing everything. I don't know how else y'all want me to do this. I don't know how many more court dates we have to go through. I respect everybody being here, but it's clear that we've done our part here. I've addressed every single detail possible. To the trucks pulling up, I'm a distribution company that supplies 41,000 pounds of crawfish a week to the state of Mississippi. 19 restaurants order crawfish from me, and I pull up at their door at 3 a.m. in the morning in the pouring rain, soaking wet, and guess who's driving the truck? Me or my brother. Okay, Dustin, either me or him. The only 2 guys that have driven. We have done it, and we make sure distribution routes are handled properly. And guess when we deliver? We deliver before 9 a.m. We do not deliver in the peak of traffic at 5:30 in the afternoon because there's no reason to do that. Our gate for our entrance that we legally have to have for a fire truck to pull up has been addressed by our fire code, the fire marshal. He has come out and examined every bit of the property. They had 9 firemen and fire marshals on our property examining if this was safe. And they've done everything and they've given us the code. We have followed the laws Oxford's put in front of us. I don't have anything else for you guys. But when it comes to the drop-offs and all the opinions and the concerns, a Cisco truck was blocking my business yesterday, and we couldn't get concrete to drop off. And that Cisco truck was in the parking lot of the Chevron. It didn't fit in the Chevron, and those are not my problems. I didn't create the laws here in Oxford. All I can do is abide by them. I won't waste any more of your time. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jared. Board,
What's,
have questions for
yeah,
any involved, for Ben, or?
I mean, it's gonna be a bar at night.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be in open until the time of 1 a.m., 2 a.m. The difference I see here is, Mr. Foster, is, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's really a work of art when the library gets out.
Oh, yeah.
And they are pushed through the alley to Jackson, which is a closed-off street. The horses then push them that way and keep them off the square to push them further down to the parking garage. And it really is truly an amazing thing to watch, because you have, I don't know, let's just take an average ball game weekend, 2,000 people, you think?
In the library,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's 2,000 in the library.
2,000 people hitting the street at one time, and it really is. The problem I have here is you've got approximately 260 people, if you're full, right? Outside, inside. You're going to unleash those people at one time, last call. You're going to unleash 260 people out per your exit onto University Avenue. I can't get horses. I can't close down University Avenue. I can't get horses there. I would have to hire, the city would have to hire special officers, 2 to 3, just to deal with your establishment. The public safety of it, and I look, I get it. You serve an industry and you have a business, and look, odor, don't know, right? You hadn't started cooking anything, don't know. Trash, don't know, hadn't started cooking anything. But what I do know is that, assuming it is, as you say, a well-run business, you will have at 1:30 a.m., 260 people unleashed into either a neighborhood, which is my neighborhood, or onto the city streets of Oxford. And I've watched it. I've seen it. I've spent time with the Oxford Police Department and watched people, not even now, they just walk across the road. They don't go to the signal. And I get it. That's on them, right? But what we're doing now is, when you are at that capacity, you are now increasing the odds numerous, 6 times as much of something happening. And that's the problem I have with it.
I understand your concern.
I've heard that it's, I'm not, and I get it. The top capacity of any outdoor seating right now is 38. Your capacity will be 6 times that. That's why I use that number. So that's my problem with this as it comes to. And I get it. Look, I get it. I'm allowed to do it. Law says I can. The zoning says I can. I understand. But I served on the planning commission for a long time, and I served on this board for a while as well. And I think I've said it before, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
I understand your concern.
And that's my problem here is, I don't think you should have 200 capacity bar
Okay.
at this corner.
That's fair. I appreciate your concern. And truth be told, I would say that would be a major concern for a lot of the people across from Funky's and Library and everywhere else. And I did actually sit Saturday night, and I videoed those horses. I actually took pictures of those horses.
Jackson's closed off.
Yeah, so Jackson, when you say it's closed,
They're big bollards, they stick down. They stick them down, and then they pull in barricades where you got a police officer sitting in a barricade and it funnels you.
yeah,
And so I can't close off University. I can't put bollards up at University. I can't put horses on University Avenue. I just can't.
I understand. So back nine, right next to me, Proud Larry's, right next to me, they're both touching each other. We're talking 298 total capacity between the two places. We're pushing out onto the same street that I'm pushing onto, 51 yards from my business. And also, in return, you guys created an Uber pickup. So that was for the safety of those customers to walk out. It's my job to make sure that we have a sign that shows, which we do, that shows where safety for Uber is picked up. When they exit our property, if you look closely at our COA, you will see a velvet, or you'll see a rope section. And as they exit out of that section, you will see on the top left side, those pedestrians are exiting the same way that they entered, just like they do at the library. I copied the best, safest bar that we seem to have in Oxford. And they have to go out of that rope. It keeps no more than 5 people can exit out of that one entrance at a time, because they all have to walk out of that exit. Now, if it was an emergency exit, that gate pushes open because we had to follow fire code. So technically, we don't have 240 people or 60 people run down in the property. And 111 yards from me, I love that number, 111 yards from me is Harrison's. And that outdoor capacity, which was an incorrect stat just then, is 425 people that sit outdoor. And they actually had 619 people on their property Saturday night at one time, and no code was violated. I was standing there, and we also put a staff of 21 total people on the square this weekend to record and put out the sound ordinance for the whole entire city of Oxford. And we recorded the sound ordinance, and we broke the noise ordinance in 4 different locations. And nobody reported a citation on Monday morning. So again, I'm following the laws. I just want to be treated equally. And I have set up a very organized, structured business based upon plan A, B, and C. A, 75 people inside, that is already open and operating this coming weekend. We are smooth and ready to run. We've been approved by the health department. Everything's ready to go. Now it comes down to outside. We've put a nice barrier that keeps people from walking straight to that red light. They're safe. They're behind a fence. They're not sitting in a parking lot to get hit. And then you guys also contacted me this week to build curbs on your property. That is the city's property that I'm financially paying to build curbs. I'm paying to put the curbs up. I spoke to John Crowley, the city engineer, and he said, Jared, you're good to go. You build those curbs and it keeps cars from hitting the property and it makes it safe for your pedestrians. So I've addressed it, and I understand that your concern would be that we would push 260 people out, but we're not pushing anybody out with horses or rushing them out. We do have a last call, just like everybody else in Oxford, and we follow that ordinance, and those laws are literally the same for every single person. So again, 50 yards from me, total capacity doubles my capacity that is pushed out into the same corner in the same street as me, and all those people left. And we had right at 914 customers walk onto the Chevron parking lot. 914 total customers walked into the Chevron parking lot this past weekend, which is 4 times my capacity. And they all walked out there to buy chicken on a stick. And there was no horses directing them, there was no cops directing them, and that was not addressed before I showed up in this court hearing. So today, I do respect the opinions, but we have to understand this is objective analysis, and I have followed every single thing, along with paying 5 months of rent, waiting to get open, and all these court dates. I don't know what else I could possibly do besides yield to your laws and make sure I follow them. And that's all I'm asking for today, is that I'm treated the same as every other person that set foot on the square and followed an ordinance and the laws set before them, because that's exactly what I've done. I don't know what else to address. If you guys, want me to somehow build a different business model there, well then, man, I don't know why somebody else hasn't done it. They couldn't use those 16 parking spots with 32 people, guys. 32 people could not run a business at $13,000 a month in rent. I also have already been pushed, been pushed by the city to make sure that I'm moving forward with a wall around the parking lot for next year. You guys said y'all didn't want that whole outdoor section there. I'm already working with Tom. We're already doing architectural plans. I've been meeting with Ben. I've already been discussing the things that we need to do to make sure that there's a wall put around that property for even more safety. I offered that my father that built at least 4 people in this courtroom's pool today, he builds nice paradise pools. We offered to put a safety wall around the parking lot instead of the fence. I've offered every single detail. So upon this, I just don't understand what else I could address, and I'm just asking to not be treated any different than any other citizen in Oxford, especially in the historical department. And I also want to say the South Lamar residents are great people. They've done a fantastic job, obviously getting to where they're at in life, and they wouldn't own a business on South Lamar, including yourself, Mr. Hyman. But your location is no different than East Lamar, West Lamar. My brother lives 200 yards away from Funky's and away from St. Leo's and all those places that push out onto those streets, and that sound and the smell of the food is no different than mine. That's all I'm asking, is to be treated equal here. It's not going above the law. Equality is all I'm asking for in this courtroom, and I still have yet to hear where we are just not following the objectives and that we haven't set forth a safety measure followed by the commission that you guys voted in place. We have a commission that made the right decision. We won the first appeal, and this is another appeal that I'm still here for, fighting, standing, doing the right thing. I don't know what else I could possibly address besides the safety ordinance of the Uber pickup that you guys set in place.
I'm just telling you, I'm not trying to argue with you, and I'm not trying to tell you what kind of business you can or cannot open. I'm just telling you, at 275 people, 200 outside, 75 inside, whether they come out at 5, 10, 2 by 2 or whatever, they're still going to be on one of the busiest streets in Oxford.
Yes, they are.
They'll actually be on 2 of the busy streets.
Yes, sir.
They're not, it's not Harrison's. I get it. Harrison's is where Harrison's is, but it's also not on the most traveled, second most traveled intersection in the city. And that's all I'm telling you. What I consider is the plan as proposed. And I understand that you have followed details and abided by codes, and I understand that. But again, simply, my position is that at some point in time, public safety has to be paramount than noise, odor, trash, things like that. And that's where my concern is, because of the capacity at this particular corner seems to me to be dangerous.
Okay. It's, so the Oliver, you don't feel that with that 150 plus their 49 staff members, at 210 people, you don't feel that those are unsafe?
Where are we talking about?
The Oliver across the street from you,
The Oliver
10 yards from you.
capacity is under 38 for outdoors.
But they're still walking out the door, and
They
they're still
are.
walking on the same amount of foot as me, and they all come in at 1 o'clock in the morning-ish, coming from the bars, wherever it is. We don't know what customers are any different. They're all treated the same. We are talking about 1,400 total capacity within 65 yards of me.
Well, if I ever see 275 people leave the Lamar at one time, the Oliver at one time,
Yeah.
then I'll get on board, but I've never seen that. And I don't think that happens. What I'm just telling you is, and I'm just stating the case, and I'm stating my position.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm not saying that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I wish you abundant success. I hope it is a great place, and I hope it does really well. But my problem is, as proposed, the capacity is dangerous to me, and the way it is, having all these people pushed out onto, and I don't, again, doesn't matter how they come out at 1:30 or 1 o'clock, they gotta go. Whether 5 by 5 or 2 by 2 or 7 by 7, whatever, they gotta go. And they're all gonna come out on the university, and that's my position. That's it.
That's fair. And of the total stats on the square, Just to give you guys a heads up, a little over 14,000 body count this weekend, 14,000 total body count from the corner of Library to the corner of the Chevron. So that 14,000 body count walking on public streets of our 260, that makes up less than 3%. Less than 3% of the total square. So that whole entire historical department square is under the same zoning commission. We must follow the same ordinances under the entire zone. If my business is zoned legal in that zone, if I'm running the ordinances properly in that zone, that's what everything is based off of when it comes to why we're here today. I will follow the laws of the safety measures of Oxford, and luckily my business is the only business of the 6 main bars that have a blinking walking sign directing them where to go and doesn't need an officer to direct the traffic based upon the legalities. You have the red lights, you have the green lights, and my customers are not any different. They're not just coming from the Ole Miss game to come park at Velvet Ditch. And the parking issue, Proud Larry's has 1 parking spot, Back 9 has 1 parking spot. The parking, zoning, it's all the same, guys. And that's all I'm stating. And if we run into a legal issue with something to do on the square, then that will be addressed by you guys. But as of now, I've followed every single step forward, and anything that's been asked of me in every single court date to add to these locations, I have done so and been given the approval to move forward, and now we're waiting on an appeal to make sure that and this isn't even against me. That's what's kind of crazy is like, you know, when you look at what we're actually all here for today, you're not even here against me. You're here against the commission. Did the commission actually follow what was legal? And 6 of the 7 commissioners voted by the city limits of Oxford voted that it was legal, it was smart, it was safe, and that we had a very organized plan. So you're not even voting against me today. You're voting against the 6 people that were hired and maybe not hired actually, I was told that it's free, which is awesome of you guys. But you're seriously, thank y'all. But you're voted into this position, and we went 6 for 7 at our last commission meeting. So again, it's not against me, it's against what was created and organized by the city of Oxford in meetings with your employees, your staff members. And today I'm just the voice representing the people that actually made the same decision, and they made the right decision by the law. Thank you. Any other questions?
I just have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Or 2 comments. One is there's been a lot of talk about the odor and the food truck,
Yes,
et cetera. I mean, you have the property lease, you can pull that food truck on that property any day by right.
Yes,
and
sir, I
cook.
can.
You could have a second food truck
Yes, sir.
pulled on there.
Yeah,
So
the
all
law.
the concern about the food truck,
Yep,
I mean, legally it can be there and can cook. Now you need to
I would
handle that odor,
yeah.
et cetera, the trash. My concern of site plan, part of it is the density, and I know building a curb and a fence, but just how close the tables sit to the busiest intersection, or one of the busiest intersections in town. Where, you know, people are making left-hand turns to go down to University.
Yeah, of course.
Just any distraction there, that's my biggest concern, is just there's very little buffer zone between the tables so close to the fence and the streets.
Okay, yeah,
That's one of my,
That's fair.
one of my big concerns is.
Yes, sir. I would love to address the food truck for you. I don't want to be in a food truck. My staff doesn't want to be in a food truck. That's why we invested in brick and mortar over at Landshark, and we need more seats at Landshark. Ben and I have spoke. The food truck is only needed because the bowling room isn't already there. We've already, the bowling room has been voted to, you know, be in on the COA. I can't start on the bowling room until I go in front of the board again, which means I can't even build the bowling room, guys, and start bowling crawfish until the bowling room is built. I can't even do it. So saying that, the food truck is only temporary because I don't want the food truck in the parking lot. Y'all, I do not want to have to pack my kitchen up, pull it off every night, bring it back, pull it up, bring it back. I don't have to deal with any of that. I've been dealing with that in 7 other locations statewide, 7 food trucks statewide. I deal with it every day. I'm tired of the food truck stuff. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing and going through this headache. So as soon as we are approved by Ben and the commission, and then you guys again possibly, I'm not sure how that works, we won't be on the food truck. Due to the smell, I have to take all the food off my property every night anyway. I do it at Landshark. We share a dumpster with Smoothie King and Buffalo Wild Wings and Chick-fil-A quite often. And we've had 0 complaints on the food over there and the issues. We actually hired Mr. Heyman's son, George Heyman's son, he has a trash can cleaning business, and we hired him. He's 16 years old. I thought it was amazing. Yes, I'm promoting your company, man. You're killing it. 16 years old, got his own business, and he literally comes by and cleans the entire property of trash cans. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen for something like that. I don't have to worry about it anymore. They come clean them. We removed the dumpster from the property. We removed the smell. We removed the trash. We removed everything. We even removed the grease receptacles because I spoke with Tom Davis, and Tom Davis and Abner got everything worked out based upon some stuff that we had to do, and we've been approved for that to work. So I'm taking the trash and the grease exactly where the city built it for us to take it. We're removing all of that off the property. We have no wood to catch fire on the property. Everything from the fire department to Ben to you guys. Anything you've set forward, I've followed in line. I know you are tired of listening to me. You gotta be. You gotta be. You know, like, I love y'all. I just want to get my business open, and I want to do it legal. I want to do it right. I want to make sure that we follow the laws set in front of us. And if you guys want to sit together and we can discuss in the future, I'd love to come in and sit down and talk about the safety of maybe food trucks not being on a historical department for the tackiness and all that stuff. But as of now, it's the only option I'm given because of the laws from the fire department not allowing us to boil the crawfish indoors with too large of a flame. I didn't set those laws. I don't have a fresh seafood market on the corner of the square. I'm eliminating a very large profit that a lot of you South Lamar people would love to come and grab some fresh salmon and crab and shrimp from me. I've eliminated it. We're not selling any fresh. We're not selling any fresh crawfish. All crawfish is being cooked. We're selling no, you can't come buy live from us. That's all over at Landshark. I eliminated certain foods, even my Cajun catfish that smells stronger than my southern catfish. I didn't put it on the menu. Strictly to remove any chance of it smelling worse than you possibly want it to. I'm here to do anything you need me to do, but I can't restructure the corner of Oxford, Mississippi for you guys. All I can do is follow the laws. Does anybody else have anything for me?
Dan, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
For Ben.
Oh.
So the 38 people over at Oliver compared to whatever the number is on the exterior portion of the building. Tell me about that. Tell me what is allowed on the exterior portion. Because I'll tell you this, Harrison, I don't think we as a city, only me, we as a city didn't get that right. And we want to avoid doing that again. So tell me about the outside numbers.
In terms of capacity? Yeah. So
Set by fire code.
Yeah.
And so,
I can help answer that if you need me to.
and I think an important point to make that the planning commission did address was, typically at a restaurant bar, you have two numbers. You have a number with capacity with the tables and the chairs, and you have a capacity. I'm sorry.
Let me come to this microphone. That's a little bit better. If you can hear me okay. Capacity is determined by the fire department based on fire code. And, one thing that was discussed at the Planning Commission meeting was the capacity of the outdoor space. In this particular instance, you get two numbers. You get a number when you have all the tables and the chairs that are in place. You also get a second number if the tables and chairs are removed. Generally, that number is going to be larger. It's going to have a larger capacity. And so the way that if you saw one of the conditions in the Planning Commission's approvals was that there could not be a second number for a larger capacity without the tables and chairs. So the capacity without tables and chairs couldn't be. Your number for what you have for tables and chairs is the only capacity number that would be allowed in this particular instance. So as to the capacity for the Oliver Hotel and their outdoor patio, I mean, that was all predicated based on the fire code.
Based on their tables and chairs?
Yeah.
200.
That was the number that 75 inside, and I just, again, 200 is
But I think they have a ballroom too, so I don't know if that factors into the number. They have a ballroom, they have a couple bar areas with a restaurant.
You're talking about
I think that's what you're referring to as the inside of the Olive.
it is.
No, I'm talking about the outside.
Well, the outside was 38, but then I think you said 200%.
No, I'm talking about 200 on this side.
On
That's
this
an-
side, the exterior.
That's the number I've heard.
That, fire marshal hasn't come by our location and given us that because we can't get the capacity until we put the tables out. It's just impossible, and since I can't put tables out until I get the COA approved, then we can't do so. So just like every other business on the square, they can't get the fire code until we have our tables and stuff in place.
What was the site plan say?
So, I'm sorry.
What was the site plan?
Right now, the site plan can't say anything, it only says the amount of seats we have, which is 125.
I'm gonna say, that's what I just
It's
counted.
125 out there, but you know, people that stand in that space, the way the fire code works comes down to how many people obviously can turn their hands in a certain direction per person. So just like, and guys, I apologize to everybody that owns bars on the square. I'm sorry to use your bar names, because I'd hate for my name to be thrown out and stuff. But man, every single bar Saturday night was over fire code. I'm just gonna call it how it is. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. They're gonna hate me for it, but we went in and we did capacity and all 4 of the bars were over fire code. I'm gonna be the one that says it out loud. I have to be that guy right now. So if we're gonna be concerned about my fire code, I have to follow the laws. And I went in there and we counted, and I paid that staff to go do it, to make sure that my life is treated equal here. We are not any different. It's a sit-down restaurant outside with tables. Nobody can control, it's not the firemen's fault. We don't have enough firemen to stand there. If that many people come through the door, we as the citizens of Oxford need to sit down, come together and figure out an electronic way that controls how many people go in a bar and how many come out. And that capacity law needs to be set based upon electronic coming in and coming out. Because that's the only way to do it. Nobody can stand there and control how many people go in those bars.
Okay, I'm just gonna cut you off, because that's not really, I hear you.
Okay.
I hear you, not arguing the point,
Yeah.
but that's not really what we're here to talk
Right. I
about.
just don't know any other way to control the laws of Oxford.
So just one question on the capacity outside. So there's roughly 125 seats, what I just calculated.
Yeah.
So the outdoor capacity is 125 plus standing room?
Yes, it's plus standard. That's the laws in the state of Mississippi.
Okay. And that's where the other 75 come from, or roughly 200?
Yeah, well, technically that property, so for example, I wasn't forced to put that many tables and chairs in that parking lot. I wasn't forced to do it. I didn't have to add that many tables and chairs. I could have put 6 tables and chairs. But instead, I went ahead and built it for what a restaurant needed for us to be able to run successful off of $13,000 a month in rent and $7,000 extra in bills, which is $20,000 in overhead before we even pay payroll, that I've now paid 5 months straight on. So the capacity is based upon the laws of Oxford. You guys have the fire marshal that decides the laws. Okay, he's the one that follows that law set in front, and I'm a elite following the laws set as well for whatever capacity they give me. And the safety measures are all followed here.
So what is being speculated as fire code occupancy is speculated until
Yes.
they have everything set up and fire marshal comes in and says
Correct.
X. But we do have enough experience in doing so to know that we're pretty close on what that would be.
Yeah, we are. This is a very accurate number. And truth be told, one way that we were able to get this investment moving forward was for us to offer a place that didn't feel like the other 4 bars on the square, shoulder to shoulder with nowhere to stand. That's why we have the tables. So for example, if y'all walked in to eat dinner at my place right now and it's 8:15, what's up guys? I'm Jared, thanks for coming to Velvet Dish. I want to give you a little bit of a skill here. So you're gonna rent a table, and the table you're getting past 9 o'clock tonight, when it closes, you can keep this table. Instead of us running you out of here. Yes, you've eaten here at the restaurant. If you would like to stay here and keep this table, you can keep this table. We put a velvet rope around that table for you to have your own section to make sure that you're not overcrowded by college kids standing over the top of you. So every single section of our property was spaced out enough for us to actually be able to put a safety measure and also give people their own private space. Nobody in Oxford offers that. You don't get run off your table. You don't get run out of the bar.
Does anybody else have a question for Jared? If not, I'm going to allow Lauren to make a rebuttal statement.
And I'll make this quick. I want to circle back to one of the first points. What is on your agenda tonight is whether the planning commission got it right and whether it got it wrong. We're not here to consider what Mr. Foster gets right at other locations, what other locations on the square are getting wrong, or what he's expended already on this business venture. Those are simply not what was before the planning commission. I provided you with those factors that they should have considered pursuant to the Land Development Code. And it's our argument here tonight that they did not fully consider those factors. I appreciate Mr. Foster's argument and his plans for his business, but he has shed no light on how the Planning Commission got it right versus our argument of how it was gotten wrong. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you. Okay, board. What is your desire, or do you have any other questions?
I still say this, and regardless of a framework or business model or whatnot, the current site plan to me is against the spirit of the Land Development Code, which is to promote the public health and safety of the inhabitants. I think this actually endangers the public health and safety of inhabitants, specifically those who would inhabit this restaurant. I think it will cause congestions in streets. Again, 1.6.4 of the code calls for that. It's a danger. And so my motion is to, I assume, is to grant the appeal and overturn the members of the Planning Commission which approved the site plan. Does that make sense?
It does. So the motion is to grant the appeal and to overturn the decision by the Planning Commission. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
All right, any comment?
So Brian, is that based on, that's based on the 1.6.4?
Well, right, yeah, primarily, yes. The objectives of the Land Development Code, I think it's 1.6, and then after that, talks about congestion in the streets. And again, I'm talking about as proposed to us, the site plan as proposed to us.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
All right, thank you. So the appeal is granted. And we're going to take we're going to have a 3-minute intermission so that people can leave that want to leave, and so that people can go to the restroom. All the discussion's been had, Jared. I can talk to you later, but all the discussion's been had for this portion of the meeting. I mean, you heard the motion and second. I hear ya.
Hey, just so everybody knows, I'm genuinely appreciate y'all being here. Open Ditch opens this Friday. We don't have outdoor seating, it's okay. But we do open Friday, we've already been approved. I have the permit, so we'll see you guys this Friday.
See no permits, yes, I have.
And 4 food trucks to be in the parking lot.
Does he have any idea where the one is? Never mind.
Well, I saw her husband in here. I don't think I recognized her.
Meeting back to order. Item number 9, request permission to advertise for bids for the extension of turf on fields 9 and 11 at M Trade Park. Mr.
So
Freeman.
moved.
Good job, Brad.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Request permission to advertise for bids for equipment for new vehicles in Oxford Police Department. Chief?
Yes, ma'am. So this is for our 8 car upfits that we need to do the bidding process as per state law.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Request permission to approve and authorize the mayor to sign an updated contract with Axon for the addition of equipment for
Motion
4
made.
new officers.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Second reading and public hearing for proposed ordinance to amend the zoning map for case 3131, JWM Development LLC, to rezone 26.06 acres from traditional neighborhood business and neighborhood residential to suburban multifamily, and 0.07 acres from neighborhood residential to suburban residential for property located on Old Taylor Road be further identified as PPINs 14967 and 34538.
Thank you. I'll give a brief or overview. So 31 total acres here. The request is to rezone 26.06 acres that's currently zoned TNB and traditional neighborhood business and neighborhood residential to suburban multifamily, and approximately 0.07 acres from neighborhood residential to suburban residential. The applicant appeared at the September 9th Planning Commission meeting. The commission heard from the applicant that they believe that there is sufficient change in the character of the neighborhood due to the city's most recent annexation, the construction of Oxford Way, Belk Boulevard, and improvements to Chucky Mullins Drive. They also cited an approval of a TIF agreement to fund a new road that would connect Oxford Way to Belk Boulevard. A new service station had been approved at Old Taylor Road and Landis Road. That also requires several traffic improvements, including a traffic signal. Staff noted that the underlying zoning was unique in its application because it provided 3 different zoning designations to represent the TND overlay that was put in place just prior to the adoption of the comprehensive zoning. The application noted that the need for more housing opportunities caused by the growth of Oxford, and in particular the university, is certainly driving the demand for more housing in Oxford. After considerable discussion by the applicant, members of the public that provided comment, and the Planning Commission, a motion by Commissioner Smith to recommend approval was seconded by Commissioner Murphy, and that motion failed with a 3-4 vote.
All right, so this is a second reading and public hearing. So I'm going to give JWM Properties the opportunity to go first, if you would like to speak, and then we'll have comments from the public that's here to speak.
Good evening, Mayor, Board.
Good evening.
I'm John Granberry with Granberry and Associates, for the record. This is J.W. McCurdy of JWM Development. I'm going to give a quick recap of Ben's report and the rezoning case. As Ben said in his report, city staff supports the rezoning for a number of reasons. The first reason is the history of the zoning of the property. As the city was going through the comprehensive rezoning, this property was going through the approval process for a project that required a complex mix and uses and densities. Since it seemed like this project was going to move forward at the time, it only made sense to designate the underlying zoning in accordance with the proposed development. This is what created the uniqueness of the zoning that is now on the property. Given the unique nature of the 3 different zoning districts on this property, rezoning does not create a precedence, or for other rezoning cases, even JW's own properties won't be able to point to this rezoning as a precedence to follow. It's a true one-off. The Vision 2037 Comprehensive Plan emphasizes the need for flexibility as our city evolves. We've shared a map with the Planning Department highlighting key changes that have taken place in the area since the comprehensive rezoning. These changes include the recent annexation, infrastructure projects, and multiple new developments. In the Vision 2037 Comprehensive Plan, multifamily zoning is mentioned as a transition zone that can buffer single-family neighborhoods from commercial and high-traffic areas. By keeping multifamily zoning located in appropriate areas like Old Taylor Road, this will keep other parts of the town from having housing and traffic issues. As Commissioner J.R. Rigby pointed out at the Planning Commission meeting, given the location of this development to the trail would be used by students who lived at this development to access the university. This would reduce the future traffic burden on Old Taylor Road, and this multifamily development near the trail will promote non-vehicular travel, which is another way this rezoning aligns with the core principles of the Vision 2037 Comprehensive Plan. The Vision 2037 Plan emphasizes the need for the city to meet the needs of Oxford's growing population. With the city of Oxford's exponential population growth and with the university's enrollment being at its highest level ever, the question of need for this multifamily development is indisputable. In closing, this rezoning aligns with the Vision 2037 Comprehensive Plan and addresses the evolving needs of our changing community. It respects the property's unique zoning history, promotes non-vehicular travel through trail access, and most importantly, this rezoning will provide much-needed housing for our community. We respectfully ask for your support and thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, does anybody have any questions for John before we hear from the public?
John, what's the change? What's the change in the area?
So we listed several changes of the neighborhood in our what we provided. Ben went through them briefly.
I've got it. I mean, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, there are other changes. Actually, one that was not mentioned, in addition to the ones we did mention in the report
And
and
go through
staff.
those because the public doesn't all have this that's in front of us.
Okay,
So-
sure. So you've got the annexation, which obviously was recent and moved the city lines. That was directly across from the property on the the west side of the property. Oxford Way construction infrastructure project opened up a multitude of different development properties. Chucky Mullins Drive construction, the new gas station, which has not been constructed yet but has been approved. Along with that, the traffic impact study for the gas station requires traffic signalization of that intersection right there at Landis Road. So that's also a change that's forthcoming.
At the corner of Landis and Old Taylor?
Yes, yes.
I'm with you.
The TIF financed connector road. So that's the plan to construct a proposed north-south connector road. And the numerous new developments, like we'd mentioned, you've got the archive, the Julep, which is planned. It's a large planned unit development right south of the city limits, but on Old Taylor Road, about 5,000 feet from this property. You've got Marlowe condos, Soleil, Village Station, all of those are new developments. In addition to that change in character and those, you've also got the neighborhood has experienced one large change that has not been brought up to y'all, so this is a new one. Since this property was zoned, the university has taken numerous apartment complexes off the market through master leases. And in addition to proving the need, as that does, this has changed the community significantly by making rental housing far more difficult to find than what was available when the property was originally zoned.
Okay, any other questions for John?
When was South Campus Recreation Center finished? Their old whirlpool plant? 3 years ago?
No, more than that.
4 years ago?
Yeah,
Okay.
3 to 5.
So in that about the same time, the other case was coming
Might be
through?
longer.
So the other case was in mid-2017. I think
Okay.
the rec center and the road were finished in 2019.
Okay.
What complexes are subject to master leases in that area?
The way we understand it, the archive at Oxford Farms, the university leased 600 units, or beds, units, I'm not sure.
I'm told that the university has 5 master leases totaling about 1,156 beds.
Any on Taylor?
I don't have the list of them in front of
Okay.
me. I just know from them
Yeah.
that they have 5 master leases.
I know 3.
And I mean, and that's correct. That creates a trickle down that
Sure.
pushes these students into neighborhoods rather than into purpose-built student housing developments. Okay, anybody else have a question for them? All right, this is a public hearing, so anyone who is here to speak on this is welcome to come up and speak. Yes, sir. If you'll just introduce yourself before you start.
Good evening, my name's Greg Love. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this. So a couple of things I want to address. One, which hasn't been mentioned, was this property in 2016, before the zoning was redone, was proposed to the board to be rezoned for multifamily. The board rejected it. Mass outcry from the community said this was a bad plan. So when they did the master rezoning in 2017, that was specifically something that was not considered. So while Ben was talking about this proposed project that was done at the time, the board had already decided that this property, that a large multifamily apartment complex adjacent to the trails at this location on Old Taylor Road was not a good idea. I believe several of the members on the board were around at that time. When we're talking about changes in character in the neighborhood, nothing they have said is not in the master plan. Everything that has been done, Chucky Mullins was open well before 2019. The South Campus Rec Center was being constructed and opened in 2019. It was all understood and being proposed and worked on. The Oxford Way Road was in the plan. It opened just after the 2017 plan was proposed or was finalized. So it was also well understood. As for need, yes, the university is increasing, but when the 2017 plan was done, the university was rapidly increasing then as well. It was a plan designed with an expectation of increase. Last year's enrollment was nearly identical to 2017's enrollment at the university. This is a big increase, but it's one the city planned for back then. We saw a decline immediately afterwards. Hugh Freeze left the football team, didn't do so well, enrollment in my classes got smaller. That could happen again. There is no assurance that this is a ongoing trend. Relatedly, on the need part, it is whether or not there is need for more multifamily housing zoned land. There is substantial. They listed proposed developments in nearby areas. Is that this land meets that zoning is much less clear. And if we're talking about, we just have lots of students, land near you changed. I live near the Lamar. Should I get myself, my neighbors, to have it rezone our properties from single family to multifamily? We're closer to the university. And then lastly, I want to say the comment about students using this to access the university. It is over 2 miles from this property to the center of the university with nearly zero pedestrian infrastructure. No one will walk that road across Chucky Mullins more than once before they realize that was a very poor idea. And the city needs to consider where this property is. Development on is expected, but it needs to be one that is well designed for this location and a large multifamily unit where you only have 50-foot buffer to the trail, which Faulkner Flats is more than a 50-foot buffer, and already people were upset about its development. The city needs to consider that going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Sure, come on.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Marcos Mendoza. I'm a anthropology professor at the university. I'm also on the environmental studies faculty. And I'd also like to introduce you to my daughter, Sylvie Mendoza, who is a middle school student at Oxford Middle School. And I think that democratic deliberation really improves when we have data available to us and information about the people who will be most affected by these decisions, namely the people who will be using the whirlpool trails. And to do this, my daughter is going to speak about her science fair project that she undertook when she was in 5th grade on this exact topic. So as she speaks, I'm going to pass out just some flyers to kind of provide you with a little bit of information in graphical form about kind of her findings from her study.
Great. Welcome, Sylvie.
My name is Sylvie Mendoza, and for my science fair project, I passed out surveys asking people what they thought about the Whirlpool Trail's value and worth. I collected 79 surveys in total. The first question was, what is your age? Most people were between the ages of 18 and 50. How do you use the trails? Most people walk, run, or bike, but there were also lots of other ways people use these trails. Most people use the trails in spring and fall, but mostly all year round also. Most people go 1 to 3 times a week, followed by every day, and then 2 to 3 times a month. Hours per month is mostly between 0 and 10, but there's a wide range. For the 79 people in the survey, I calculated for the entire group, spent 1,000 hours total per month and over 12,000 hours per year on the trails. And this is just a small part of the total user population. But then my last question was, how upset would you be if the trails and forests were developed into houses or roads? And please rate how upset you'd be on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not upset and 10 being very upset. 2 people said 7, 7 people said 8, 3 people said 9, and 67 people said 10. Leaders of the City of Oxford and the University of Mississippi should care about this study because it shows that many people in the community would be upset if they decided to develop the whirlpool trails and the forests by building houses or roads. People care a lot about protecting this area.
Great job, Sylvie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Do we have any questions? Thank you. Thank you, Sylvie. All right. Anyone else that would like to speak? Anne, you come right through there. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ann Fisher-Worth. I'm retired now from the university, but I directed the environmental studies minor for all of its existence until my retirement. My husband and I spend a lot of time on these trails. We know many, many people who do. I just learned about the existence of this plan to develop it, and I can't tell you how strongly I feel it's a wrong idea. For one thing, from an environmental studies point of view, protecting our tree canopy in this community is of the utmost importance as far as helping to fight global warming, helping to create more flow of oxygen through the community. For another thing, as you know, there's a lot of work being done now about the health benefits of forest bathing, as it's called in Japan and Germany, which just means being able to get out in a forest and walk and be quiet and be around the trees and see the bugs and see the squirrels and sometimes the deer, sometimes a fox. You know, to not just be reliant on tiny little particles of green space, but to actually have a thriving forest to spend time in, okay? For another thing, when I was doing environmental studies, I always had my students keep nature journals. And part of that involved finding a place that had not been developed and just going there and just being there over the course of a semester, keeping a journal, writing about what they saw, writing about how it changed them, if it changed them, writing about what they hated, what they loved. And that turned out to be a really seminal experience for many of my students. So I guess what I'm saying is I think the Whirlpool Trails are a great gift to this community and a great source of spiritual and emotional well-being for the members of this community. I saw that on the part of hundreds and probably even thousands of my students over 30 years of teaching here, that they would say, you know, I hated the nature journal idea at the beginning, but it was the best thing I did all semester. And many of them talked about the solace that they felt from being able to have a place where they could go that was safe, that was, you know, clean, spacious, just to be there, just to be with their own thoughts, with their own quiet, and with the process of nature. So I'm just sort of urging, please don't develop this space. Please treasure it for the great gift that it is to the people of this community.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Ann. You know, one thing that I do feel is really important to point out is that this piece of land is not a preserve. It is already zoned for development. So this vote tonight is not develop or not develop the land. And so a lot of the concerns that I hear and understand are based on, I think, a perception that if it is not rezoned, then it will not be developed. And I just want to be clear that that's not the case. It is zoned for development right now. It is zoned according to, and will be overseen by the same ordinances that other developments are. We are very proud of our tree canopy. I wish that there was a way to build and it didn't disappear, but because we know that that's not realistic, we have a very good tree ordinance in place and a tree mitigation plan. And we have a tree fund where when developers are not adding the trees, they add money to this fund. And then we have a tree board that meets on a regular basis and decides places to plant trees so that we are trying to promote our tree canopy even as we develop. But I just felt it was important to say that because a lot of the comments that I've read online and a lot of the emails that I've gotten seem to think that the vote was develop or leave as a forest. And I don't know when it'll be developed regardless, but it is zoned to be developed right now. And it's zoned to be developed in a way that I've read several comments that say it'll go from 50-foot trees to 50-foot buildings. It is currently, and Ben can correct me if I'm wrong here, I should have checked this before I started talking, but right now on that piece of property, buildings could be 38 feet tall, is that correct? There at the back, and if rezoned, they could be 40 feet tall. So I just want to be realistic about what is zoned. The city doesn't own the land where we can make the decision. I wish we did. I wish we owned all the land all the way down the trails. I love the trails. They are critical to us. And we have actually budgeted in this year's budget to do an overall study of, since we have expanded our city limits, of where we need to have parks in different areas that we just have not identified, and perhaps need to go and buy some land that we can identify as parks throughout our community. And also we have someone that's identifying how we can place trails to connect our parks together, so that we start having a real plan for our parks and our trails, and they aren't just this is here and this is here and this is here. And I even posted on my Instagram last night, I'm way off topic, but on Instagram last night I was looking in Fayetteville, Arkansas and Bentonville, Arkansas have just done such an amazing job, but their trail has development all along it. There are coffee shops, and then you go through a park that's very developed, and then you go through a very wooded area, and then you go through Taylor, and then you go, you know what I mean? It is a system of trails that incorporates both, and in a developing community, those are the kind of things that we have to be able to protect it where we can. But I just wanted to be clear, really, that this is not a vote on to develop the property or not develop the property. The property will be developed. It's just what zoning will be on that property. So I know that's a big wet blanket thing to tell you, but that's just the reality. It's not a preserve. It's owned by a developer, and it will be developed whenever they decide to develop it. So anyway, that may be more than anybody wanted to know, but that just felt important to share that, so people
I'll just
understood.
reiterate that's, the way it's zoned now and the topography of it, a lot of the concerns are really a site plan concern and not a zoning concern. So.
Okay, well, we're gonna finish, and then I'm gonna let anybody else speak that wants to. Okay.
But that's all I have to say, no matter how it's zoned, it's still the topography of it makes it very, very difficult to develop. And the concerns are, we love the trails, but that is a prime piece of property right next to South Campus Rec. And, it's all site plan, is a lot of the concerns need to be addressed at site plan. Maybe we can increase that buffer, et cetera. That's the only comment I have.
Okay, come on in.
That's just comment, just to reiterate, it's like you were saying, we've got a consulting arborist that examines our ordinances all the time. We've had two urban surveys in the last 7 years. It's an ongoing process that the city works on, is saving our trees and our tree canopy, so.
Hey, my name's Andrea Walker. I was on your tree board for several years until I moved outside the city limits. I was in Rick Addy's district. Do I still come?
No, I said you can. You want to?
Oh, yes, I'm trying to work with the tree board. I'm still friends with the folks on the tree board. I think what's important for the developers to understand is just how important those whirlpool trails are, not only to the citizens of Oxford, but to Lafayette Countyans like myself. I now live in the county. I'm a proud county resident now. And it's obvious from Sylvia's survey of 79 people just how important it is. I think it's crucially important for the college students of Ole Miss, because we know that depression and anxiety are on the rise among young people in the United States, and spending time in nature is a tremendous part of reducing that stress and anxiety. It is a beautiful trail, not only for the people that jog and walk, ride their bikes. There's some people from the biking community here who have helped create and maintain those trails. But it's also for people who love the word watch birds. I'm around JR back there. It's a fabulous place to go watch fireflies. If you've never gone there in May, it's quite a show of synchronized fireflies. So what I think is crucial, and because I am concerned that the tree ordinance that we have doesn't have enough teeth, Because every time there's a development, clear cut. It doesn't matter how old or mature the trees are on that property, they are not being saved. So obviously mitigation is not enough of a deterrent when it comes to development. The trees along that trail are absolutely beautiful. I think that when you do this development, obviously it's gonna happen, that you make every effort to maintain a really wonderful buffer along that trail, because when you're walking out there, you don't really want to have to see the buildings. You don't, you know, there might be seen between some of the trees, but you don't want them to be so freaking obvious. Sound, noise, you want to be able to basically commune with nature as best as you can. Oxford is growing tremendously fast, and that movement's coming into the county. It's coming out where I live. And I just hope that people will value what is truly beautiful about Oxford, is that it does have beautiful trees. South Lamar, North Lamar, those are beautiful. But in our new developments, there are hardly any trees. And it's obvious, not only do we need them to mitigate climate change, but they do wonderful things like to help keep moisture going into the soil and not run off like crazy. Calmness, peacefulness, they increase property values. What's the most beautiful neighborhood in all of Oxford? All around Pike Lamar, Country Club Road. Absolutely gorgeous part of town. And why is it beautiful? Because it has trees. So I'm just here. I'm a former classroom teacher. I'm so proud of you, Sylvia. I was a 7th grade science teacher at Oxford Middle School. Hooray for you. You did a great science fair project. Every year I had an Earth Day celebration, and we did the Lorax every year. I'm here to speak for the trees. That's corny as I'll get out, and I know it, but please, please, you're the developers, it's in your hands. Just do what's right. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Quote unquote, sir.
All right, in the back, you can come up.
Hello, my name is Michelle Bright, and I work at the University of Mississippi. I work a variety of part-time jobs at the university, and I mention that because I am a low-income wage earner, and so I have a lot of sympathy and interest in there being more housing built in the city, and possibly, hopefully affordable housing. But at the same time, I'm a great lover of nature. Because of a lot of chronic illnesses that I have, I rely on places like the Whirlpool Trails to be able to have moments to restorative health. During COVID, it was such a great gift to be able to go out into the Whirlpool Trails and, see neighbors from afar and wave and smile and still feel connected at a time when many of us had to be even more disconnected. And so I also want to mention that, while there are so many studies about health benefits of forest bathing and tree canopies, I have pulled up an article here from the National Institute of Health Internal Environmental Perspective Public Health Journal. The article is called Green Space Quality and Health, a Systematic Review. And one of the things I would like to quote from it is talking about, it's not just green spaces that offer, health benefits, but the surrounding areas around the green spaces. So substantial research is dedicated to revealing the health benefits of green spaces, while more green spaces tend to be I'm sorry, I'm going to skip this here for time. For example, green spaces may vary in terms of objectively measurable good qualities, e.g. presence of certain attractive elements such as tree canopy, footpaths, and seating, and others that are more subjective in nature, an emotional or spiritual connection to a particular green space. Bad qualities, e.g. proximity to a busy road and lack of accessibility, may discourage visitation and negate health benefits. And so I just wanted to enter that into the record that, not only are these green spaces important, but also the area kind of surrounding it. And when you alter some of those green spaces, you alter some of the health benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we had one more person that wanted to speak. Is that correct? Come on up.
My name's Peter Worth. I don't have that much to add to what the last speakers have said, all of which I think is excellent. But I want to make 2 points. One, there are a lot of people in Oxford who value trees very much, and yet, especially on the outskirts of the city, the tree canopy is disappearing. And that affects erosion, climate, and even microclimate, how cool it's going to be, because even one mature tree makes a big difference. It affects how people feel, because getting alone in nature or even sharing a trail with a lot of people in nature feels good. And I don't know if people, this is the second point, I don't know if people are fully appreciating the importance of the integrity of a forest. It's valuable to have paths connecting parks, valuable to have paths connecting green spaces. I'm all for that. But a big forest, and it is a rather big forest that Oxford has south of town, is extremely valuable. There are many pretty university towns throughout the United States that don't have anything remotely like that in terms of woods. And from the little I've seen of Fayetteville and Bentonville, Arkansas, I don't think they really have it either. There used to be a pretty big forest north of Molly Bar Road. Most of it is gone with the expansion of the airport and the building of new houses. What we have to the south of the city is really unusual and really valuable, and there are a lot of people who would like to keep it. I understand that the zoning question is a technical question and that things will be built anyway, but I just want to make a plea for the integrity of a surprisingly large forest near a really fast-growing, prosperous university town in a state which has beautiful forests, but which traditionally has not always appreciated that forest. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, board. Mr. Granberry, do you have anything to follow up with?
Thank you. And thank you, every concerned citizen here. We couldn't be in more agreement with them regarding the tree canopy and the environmental concerns and the benefits that forests have for the general public and welfare. I do want to make sure that everyone understands that it was said, but there's a 50-foot buffer along the Whirlpool trails. That's from our property line into our property. We cannot and we will not touch the Whirlpool Trail. There is no right that we have to do that. That 50-foot buffer, as I said, is from the property line. We've had that property surveyed. The edge of the trail is 45 feet from, at the closest point, from our property line to the trail. Then you've got the other 50 feet. That's almost 100 feet of buffer that will not be touched. That's more than any buffer, any setback in the city requires. So that's something to keep in mind. In addition to the buffer, JW we've already engaged a landscape architect And they've put together a robust tree planting plan that would supplement the existing buffer. This is not required. It's not required at this stage. It's not required at site plan approval. It's not required to supplement that tree buffer, only to keep it as a buffer. We are going to supplement it with 500 additional trees, 300 of which are red cedar, 100 magnolias, various other trees our landscape architect came up with to make sure that we keep that buffer. So just wanted to say that. And then lastly, regarding the tree canopy, I do want everyone to understand that this development is 30 acres and it is zoned for development, period. And it will be developed, not by JW, by somebody else. By allowing the rezoning, it's promoting high-density cluster development where we need additional housing in the community. With allowing higher density, you prevent sprawl from other areas, which if you look at the ratio of housing bedrooms, what it is now to what it would be, it's a 3-to-1 ratio. So what we would have to destroy a 30-acre forest, it would take 90 acres around the city to make it up with the same zoning. So you're preserving your tree canopy by rezoning to a higher density. Thank you.
All right. Anyone on the board have questions or comments? Oh, okay. We'll have one more. If you have something different to say, you have something different to add? Okay.
My name's Brian Pope. I live in Oxford. I ran track and cross country at Ole Miss back in the 80s, and I was a volunteer assistant coach for about 10 years. Ever since the 80s, the Ole Miss teams, track teams, cross country teams, all the sporting teams have been using that trail. It is quite a valuable asset. You might remember me from the last time when this came up. There was an issue about zoning, and there were some issues about whether or not that area has changed in its function, whether or not to award them a new zoning, and it was rejected, as I recall. I presented some photographs on the overhead back there. It's Austin, Texas. Has anybody here ever been to Austin, Texas? They have these things called the hike and bike trails. If somebody were to attempt to develop that area, it would just be pandemonium because they really treasure that. We've got 3 miles of it here.
If we owned it, though, Brian, it could be different.
What's that?
You realize we don't own it.
But the trail, though. Yeah, but the
we
trail.
don't own the trail. The university owns the trail.
I thought it was a combination between the city and the university.
The university owns Whirlpool Trails.
But does the city help maintain it?
We do, but we don't own it. We will not be able to determine long-term what the Whirlpool Trail is.
Okay, well, anyway, the point is, I think, is that this is such a valuable commodity.
I agree.
It
it's
needs to
great.
be
I hope it's there
undisturbed.
forever. I'm just saying.
That's right.
The only way to determine what something's going to be is to own it. And we don't own it. And that's.
Oh, well, okay, but I think I'm considering just the area surrounding it, whether it's intruding upon it or not. If you might recall, the Faulkner Flats, they built right up against the easement. They didn't put a buffer zone between the edge of that property and the development. If you go look at those flags, they developed right up against that flag there, and it's just unsightly. It's so important for us to be able to, in 2 minutes we can be out away from anything and everything. We got a 3-mile trail. Austin, Texas has hundreds of miles of trails that they support. And there were some issues. I don't know if you remember, this issue got quite contentious the last time, and there were police who had to restore order outside. I got surrounded by some folks, that were threatening towards me. And if you might remember this, in the newspapers, shortly after that, people were running over tacks, and I actually stepped on one in the vicinity of that property. I stepped on a little roofing nail. People were getting flat tires. So I don't know who put that out there, but this is the kind of situation, I think, how contentious this issue is. I think we should, at all costs, support and protect the integrity of that trail and the area surrounding as well. And when we started running on it, it was kind of unknown, you know, and then the bikers got involved, and now hundreds of people every week go out there and enjoy that trail.
Absolutely.
And they don't like looking at construction. They don't like to look at, and I also sent some pictures of all the runoff going into that creek there, and trees were just falling over. Because the runoff, they built this little bitty, small little retention pond at the Faulkner Flats, and it was just completely ineffective. I showed pictures of the pond. It had nothing in it during the rainstorm, and all that water was washing right through that culvert and knocking down trees all along that ditch through the university property, actually. And there's a watershed. There are 3 watershed lakes out there that receive it, and it was just filled up with red silt and sand for the longest time, coming from those construction sites.
Right.
So,
Ben, we changed a lot of our code post Faulkner Flats. That was one of the things that motivated us to become a lot more stringent in our development code. So we didn't have a lot of these things in place when that was developed. So we're not building a new development under that same set of codes. So I don't know if that makes you feel better, but it's true. Right. That was not in place when Faulkner Flats was built.
Silt fencing, temporary silt basin.
Yeah, I think, Brian, that we've addressed, you know, you screw it up one time real bad and you figure out how to fix it. And so I think that we have figured out how to address most of the things that you said.
okay. All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Brian. All right, but
Look, the trail is entirely within my ward. I use it a lot. It is a special thing in this area for sure. I appreciate having my words thrown back at me. Just because you should, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Well, this is a legal question, and it's a little different. It's a legal question as to whether or not the applicant has satisfied what is considered need, not a problem. Change and need and change. Need, we understand, and I think everybody will agree that we need housing. We've got a housing crisis, so it's about change and whether or not the applicant has proven whether or not it's changed in a way where it should be or needs to be, or at least supports rezoning. And that's what I'll say. Site plan issues are protection of the trail. You protect the trail through looking at site plans. You make sure that not only 50-foot buffer, hey, maybe we can give you, more. Maybe we can do this, do that. Make sure that drainage is going away from the trails. Things like that are all handled in site plans. And I can tell you from experience of my time on planning commission that your current planning commission does a very good job. And of course we will as well as Eagle Eye and everything from a site plan aspect. But what we're here tonight and what my responsibility is to whether or not they legally can meet this standard. That's what I'm looking at.
I agree. And I would say this, that I don't think anybody on this board or the mayor does not want to protect the trails. We do. That's a wonderful asset for our community. When I ran, I would run on the trails. I don't run anymore, as you can see. So, but I think Brian hit it right, is we want to protect the integrity of the trails and incorporate, because as a community, as we grow, development's going to grow along those trails, and I think what we need to do is make sure that we're incorporating the development with the protection of the trails, with buffers, with trees, but also being able to allow whatever is there that's being developed to be used off the trails. Mayor said something about Fayetteville, and they have coffee shops. That was one of the things that I saw that I was like, man, that would be cool if you could just walk up in Minnesota, where we go and visit a lot. they have these long linear parks where, you go for a long section and it's all forest, and then all of a sudden, it's a, retail development that has coffee shops, that has restaurants and things like that, has amphitheaters and things like that. I think if we can do that with these trails, or like the mayor said before, this board during budget looked at putting something together for our parks and how do we connect those, and as we do those, we need to keep those things in mind as well. But it's not gonna be a preserve, I do understand that. We don't own it, we can't make it a preserve, but what we can do through site plan is make sure that we're keeping the integrity of the trail.
Yep. Right. That is a second hearing. Is there a motion tonight, or what's the board's wish?
I think legally, they have met all the code that I've worked through, and I will make that motion tonight to go ahead and pass the zoning.
Change the zoning. Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
All right, a motion and a second. Any comment about anyone? All right, all in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Consider a request for an ingress-egress license for the use of the Molly Bar tank across road for property cleanup, grade work, and drainage.
Mayor and Board. This is just a license for a property owner to gain access to the back of his property through one of our access roads, Molly Bar Water Tank Access Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Request permission to adopt the municipal compliance questionnaire as per state statute.
Yes, this is one of our requirements of the state statute that we have to do every year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Thank
opposed?
you.
Request permission to authorize the mayor to negotiate an agreement with Elliott and Britt Engineering, PA, for preliminary engineering services for the Piggies Road Commonwealth Boulevard Extension Project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Request approval of an engineering services agreement with Elliott and Britt for the pedestrian corridor improvements along South Lamar Boulevard.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Request permission to accept the bids received and award a contract for the North Lamar Sewer Project. All in favor? Any opposed? Request permission to accept the bids received and award contracts for the FY 24-25 materials bids.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Request permission to advertise for bids for the Varner Loop North Lamar Drainage Improvements Project.
Aye.
All in favor? All in favor? Any opposed? Consider request from RH Design Build to work on Sundays in October for the construction of the bell within the Lamar development.
I see him, number 20. I'm
sorry?
I see him.
20.
Oh, well, sorry, guys. Sorry, got really ahead of myself here. Consider a request from ICM for special work hours at Oxford Middle School on October the 4th.
So moved.
May I have any questions?
I have plans in my house, but no, I'm kidding.
What? Do they, 4 a.m.?
They're gonna start pouring at 4 a.m. so the concrete trucks can be done and
Well,
out
that
before
makes
school
sense,
traffic.
right? That makes total
So
sense,
moved.
sure. Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consider a request from RH Design Build to work on Sundays in October for the construction of the bell within the Lamar development. My take on this would be that if it's, we have a motion and a second for this, but we should note that this is fine until we get a complaint. And if we receive any complaints on this Sunday construction, that we will have to change our mind.
Exact motion I just made.
Okay, good. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Request permission to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a quitclaim deed for cemetery plots in the Oxford Memorial Cemetery.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consider a letter of support for Mac South to apply for a grant to provide free public Wi-Fi in public spaces. I'm excited about this. Bart?
It's through it's a BEAM project, and if we support it, and they're trying to get some other support too, and they are awarded the project, they'll meet with us to decide how we house it, where the hotspots will be located, but right now it's at no cost to us, and there's no need not to pursue it at this time.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, I'd like to ask the board to consider an executive session. Do you all have something to add?
I'd like to ask the board to move to executive session.
One. potential litigation. Okay, a motion to consider executive